What's up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. Guys, today I am going to be giving you guys 7 players that are going to absolutely smash their ADP. And I am going to get right into it with the first player on my list, and that is Courtland Sutton. Now, this is a guy that I've been talking about a lot this offseason, and even before the Tim Patrick injury, I was big on Courtland Sutton this year because of his tremendously high weekly ceiling. Now that there is no Tim Patrick, this guy's season-long ceiling just shot through the roof. Now, there are a lot of mouths to feed in Denver, so there might be weeks where Courtland Sutton busts, but this is okay. We saw with the Russell Wilson-Tyler Lockett connection that Tyler Lockett had one of the highest ceilings in fantasy, and we now have an alpha version of Tyler Lockett for Russell Wilson to throw the ball to. Courtland Sutton is going to absolutely feast. He is one of those receivers that even when he had bad quarterbacks, he always ran a lot of deep routes, and we saw that this is one of the best deep ball pass catchers in the entire league. He's just never really had a good enough quarterback to throw him the ball. Now you insert one of the best deep ball throwers of all time to feed him the rock, and we're talking about a player who has probably the second highest weekly ceiling in fantasy after Jamar Chase. And I'm not kidding when I say this. And from a season-long standpoint, this guy could be a top 7 wide receiver in fantasy football quite easily. He's going to give you weeks where he busts because there's so many mouths to feed in Denver, but he is going to win you weeks. And you want to draft players that are going to have those massive weeks where they get you 30 to 35 plus PPR points. Courtland Sutton is certainly that guy, and he's going to absolutely explode this year. He will smash his ADP. He's going as the wide receiver 18. This is an absolute joke. This guy will be a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy, and he has the upside, the outside shot to finish as the top 5 wide receiver because of those tremendously high ceiling weeks that he's going to give you. Next on my list is going to be Kareem Hunt. Now, we are sitting here acting like Kareem Hunt isn't always a top 10 running back in fantasy when he actually stays healthy and on the field. Obviously, he is running behind Nick Chubb. So, he's part of a split backfield, and he's technically the backup running back. But for PPR purposes, he's going to catch more passes than Nick Chubb. He is going to get a lot of Nick Chubb's goal line opportunities because they love using Kareem Hunt as a goal line back. Later in the year when Deshaun Watson comes back, this offense is going to be super dangerous. And even before Deshaun Watson comes back, Kareem Hunt's going to absolutely go off as long as he can stay healthy and on the field because of the ridiculous amount of pass catching work he's going to see. We know that this is the most efficient backfield in the entire NFL. These running backs are always going to run the ball for somewhere around 5 yards a carry. And Kareem Hunt is going to be an absolute PPR machine this year. I love his upside. And he is going as the 27th running back off the board. This baffles me. There's no way this guy won't be a top 12 running back in fantasy as long as he can stay on the field all season long. Next player on my list is going to be Julio Jones. Now, guys, Julio Jones inserted into the Tampa Bay offense. He is somehow going undrafted in a lot of fantasy drafts. A lot of 10-man leagues he's going undrafted. 12-man leagues he's going undrafted. This is absolutely insane. We're talking about a guy who is going to give you a high weekly ceiling. Now, this is going to be a prime example of a boom or bust player this year. And the reason for this is because, well, there's just a lot of pass catchers in Tampa. There's a lot of offensive weapons. Tom Brady loves to spread the ball around. So on any given week, we really can't predict which wide receiver is going to go off. The only wide receiver in this offense that I would say is safe is Mike Evans. And even he's going to have weeks where he busts. But let's not kid ourselves. Julio Jones will have weeks where he outperforms Mike Evans. It'll happen more often than you probably think it will. And considering the fact that he's going undrafted, even if he only smashes on 2 weeks out of the entire fantasy season, smashes being like getting 30-plus PPR points, he's worth his ADP already. So considering the fact that we know he's going to have at least a couple of those weeks this season, he should not be going undrafted. So draft Julio Jones. His worst case scenario, he's going to give you a bust in most weeks, but he's going to smash in 2-3 weeks out of the season and give you a week-winning performance. And you can get him as like one of the last receivers off the board in the draft. So make sure to grab Julio Jones for your fantasy team. I promise it's going to be a good move for you. Next player on my list is going to be Melvin Gordon. Now, there's so much hype regarding Javonte Williams, but there is no way that Melvin Gordon is not a better value than Javonte Williams at this point in the draft. I mean, look, they're going 70 spots apart. And last year, this was a 50-50 split. Now, obviously, Javonte Williams is going to be featured as the main back this year, but there's no way that it's going to be more than a 65-35 split. Melvin Gordon will get at minimum 35% of the work in the backfield. It's probably going to be more of a 60-40 split. They did pay the guy. Obviously, his contract was just kind of but they signed him for a reason. They still plan on using Melvin Gordon heavily in this offense. He's going to get good goal line usage and an offense that's going to be putting up a lot of points. So considering the fact that, he's going to be probably almost certainly getting 40% of the work in this backfield, and he's playing in such a high-scoring offense, it's going to give them touchdown scoring opportunities. His value is tremendously high, and he is going to absolutely smash his ADP. He's going as like the 100th player off the board. This is an absolute joke. Next on my list is going to be Darren Waller. Now, I'm not kidding when I say that I think Darren Waller might be the most undervalued player in the entire draft. I mean, not only can this guy finish as the tight end 1 in fantasy, he literally might be the most valuable pick in the entire draft and return the most value relative to his ADP at any position in all of fantasy football. I mean, we're talking about a guy that is 6'6", 250 pounds, and can run a sub 4.5. He is one of the most impressive athletes in this entire league. He's completely and totally unstoppable. And a big reason why I'm so big on him this year is because most of the defensive attention is going to be on stopping Davante Adams, obviously, because Davante Adams is arguably the most talented wide receiver in the NFL. And now, for the first time in his career, Darren Waller is not going to be treated as a wide receiver. They're going to have to game plan to treat him like a tight end because they're going to have to stop the alpha wide receiver in Davante Adams. So this is going to leave Darren Waller open to absolutely feast. This guy, when he is not the main focal point of a defense, will absolutely torch defenses every week. His floor-ceiling combination is absolutely ridiculous. I would not be surprised at all if this guy put up more than 1,300 yards this year from the tight end position. He has ridiculously high touchdown upside because even though Davante Adams is such a prominent red zone threat, Darren Waller will still command a lot of red zone targets due to his size, awesome contested catch abilities, and just overall alpha-ness as a pass catcher. And the fact that this team is going to be in the red zone a lot. I mean, even if Davante Adams is eating up a large percentage of the red zone targets, this team is going to have so many scoring opportunities that Darren Waller is still going to get more than his fair share of touchdowns. There is absolutely no way, barring an injury, that this guy doesn't absolutely explode this year. I predict him to be the tight end 1 in fantasy, to be honest with you. And he's going to give you a lot of week-winning performances. He is going to absolutely smash his ADP. Next player on my list is going to be Jameis Winston. Now, Jameis Winston, guys, is a quarterback that can be great for fantasy, as we've seen in the past. Now, a lot of people don't like to draft him because, there's kind of a negative there's some negative stigma around his name because it's Jameis Winston. He throws a lot of interceptions. He hasn't really shown to be a consistent winning quarterback in the NFL, but for fantasy purposes, he's going to be really good. I mean, this guy loves to sling the rock. We're going to have to see how they utilize him and if they allow him to air the ball out like they did in Tampa. But we know that when this guy has the opportunity, he loves to sling the rock. He's got plenty of pass-catching weapons in Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. So I really like the upside for Jameis Winston this year. Believe it or not, I think he could be a top 7 fantasy quarterback, and he's going as like the quarterback 19 right now. He's even going undrafted in some leagues. Guys, make sure to get your hands on Jameis Winston. He has massive upside as a fantasy quarterback. Next and final player on my list is going to be Tony Pollard. This is the one player in the league that is quite literally better than the running back that he's running behind. Why Ezekiel Elliott is still the starter in Dallas, I don't know, other than the fact that, he's getting paid a lot of money. But Tony Pollard is the more talented back in this backfield. We know that this is one of the most fast-paced offenses in the entire NFL. It's going to give Tony Pollard some decent scoring upside because, even though Ezekiel Elliott's going to get the majority of goal line carries, the goal line work for Tony Pollard will certainly be increased this year at least a little bit. And he's going to be an awesome flex option to start the season, even running behind Ezekiel Elliott. And if Ezekiel Elliott happens to get hurt, I've been saying this all offseason, Tony Pollard has the upside to be the running back 1 in fantasy football. If he gets to run in this Cowboys offense with no competition for touches because of an Ezekiel Elliott injury, he will absolutely explode. And even before then, he's an awesome flex option to start the season. He's going in the 9th round, 10th round in a lot of drafts. This guy's going to absolutely smash his ADP. And don't forget that he has some of the best big play ability in all of fantasy. This dude averaged 5.5 yards a carry last year. Obviously a smaller sample size than Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor, but that's as many yards per carry as Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor had last year. So this guy's very efficient. He's very talented. And I love his upside this year. All right, guys. I appreciate you tuning into the video. I will catch you later.